Good, YouTube? Talking to you live from Abuja, Nigeria. Welcome to my channel. My name is Ifeanyi, but people usually call me Anthony or Tone. Welcome to my channel, Igbo Antonio. So, a little bit about me. 30 years old. I'm a Nigerian, obviously. And the main reason I created this channel was because I feel like Nigerians in the diaspora are losing their language. Normally, it's very rare to see Nigerians who actually speak their native tongue, who grew up abroad. I've met some, but not a lot. And I believe our native tongues are in danger of going extinct at some point. Especially me, I'm an Igbo man, so I think Igbo is especially running that risk. So I think it's very crucial that we all learn our native tongues and to keep our languages alive. I think it's the biggest legacy of white supremacy that the English colonized Nigeria, and when they did so, Igbo people started to see speaking English as an indicator of a higher class, and those who spoke exclusively Igbo were seen as like a little worse off. I went to school in Nigeria when I was between the ages of 11 and 15. And what I commonly noticed was that there's even people who grow up in Nigeria who can't speak Igbo. I mean, everyone understood it, but it tended to be the kids who came from a little bit more advantaged backgrounds who were the ones who couldn't understand Igbo. So once again, I'm gonna go back to what I was saying before. Like, we talk about, the evil legacy of the British Empire. I remember when Queen Elizabeth died, everyone was talking about, how the British monarchy has done so much damage. But I was like, why don't we think about the damage that they've done to our communities, where these people convinced us that our languages were less than. So I feel like the best way we can combat that is to learn our native tongue. Speaking Igbo doesn't mean that you're from a lower class. If anything, it's a superpower that they stripped of us. So to summarize, my goal of creating this channel was, I'm one of those Nigerians who I can understand Igbo pretty well, almost everything that's said to me, but I can't speak it too well. So I've taken it upon myself to take the time to learn my language. It's really messed up. Is it gonna take a while? Yes, but I feel like the fact that I already understand the language, and I know so many Nigerians who are of Igbo descent, even Yoruba descent, do understand their languages, they just can't speak them, that we're not as far off as we think. I understand that, like, when we try to speak our languages, Nigerians have a habit of tending to mock you, which, I mean, it's whatever, but don't let that bother you. The only way to get started speaking a language is to start speaking badly. You can't be worried about being embarrassed. Like, I think that's the biggest roadblock that most adults have when it comes to learning languages, that fear of embarrassment. And you got to get over it. You're not that important. No one cares about you. Like I said, the best way to start speaking a language is to start speaking it badly. So I plan to take you guys on this journey with me where I'm trying to learn Igbo from scratch. Well, not from scratch, speaking it from scratch, but understanding it, I can increase my vocab. So I had to change location because NEPA took the light. Someone turned on their generator, so I could barely hear myself talk. So as I was saying, how do I plan to learn Igbo? It's a great question. It's a combination of a multitude of factors, from books to media to speaking to my parents, as they're native Igbo speakers, so I'm sure they'll be glad to help, and also private lessons. In terms of the content I'm going to be posting, is going to be a lot of stuff. Sometimes it's going to be my separate thoughts about the language learning process, some advice, some things you shouldn't do, mistakes I made, things to make you guys' language journey easier. Because really the point of this channel is just to hope I can inspire one person. If I can inspire one person, that's enough. Because think about this. We're all first generation Nigerian Americans. And if you get married, if you understand Igbo but you don't speak it, and then you get married when you have kids, essentially, how are you going to teach your kids a language that you don't know how to speak? If you get married and have kids, and you and your partner can't speak Igbo, if you marry a Nigerian, I'm assuming. But if that happens, then at the end of the day, then second generation Nigerian Americans have been completely stripped of their language in all forms, and that is letting the colonialists win, and we are not going to do that. That is not an option. Also, I'm going to be completely honest with you guys. Why is this channel named Igbo Antonio? Well, it's because I'm also studying Portuguese and Spanish simultaneously for professional and personal purposes. I work in corporate finance. I'm not going to get into the specifics, But Spanish and Portuguese are very useful skills in those fields. And I've been studying both languages for about a year. I started really studying languages in October 2021, and I've reached a fairly intermediate level of Portuguese. And that's kind of shameful in my opinion, because like I can't be out here speaking other people's languages better than my own. You know what I'm saying? Again, because a lot of people were coming to the restaurant I was at, got a little bit too noisy. So to continue what I was saying, I'm also studying Spanish and Portuguese at the same time. It's kind of odd, in my opinion, that I can speak the languages a little bit better than Igbo, even though I understand Igbo more than Spanish or Portuguese. But when it comes to actual speaking, but that's only because I've had more practice actually speaking. And like one difference I noticed that we as Nigerians need to adopt is that when, as I said before, you try to speak Igbo or Yoruba, and Nigerians will mock you. Whereas you try to practice Spanish or Portuguese, and those people, they feel so honored and they're like more than willing to help you. That's one, and I am never one to sit here and like say we need to adopt other people's practices. But if there's one practice that Nigerians need to adopt, it's we need to be more encouraging of those in the diaspora that are learning to speak their languages. And at the end of the day, most people who are making fun of you when you speak badly are probably people who aren't bilingual themselves. So like I said before, do not let that bother you. Also, what I will say is, you're not too old to start learning a language. I started learning languages at 29. I'm 30 now, and I've been taking classes with people. I was in a Spanish class with a woman who was 65 years old. She was a 65-year-old Latina who was just learning Spanish in her 60s. Most times when I was in group classes, I was by far the youngest person. It was a bunch of like old retired white people. But point is, you're never too old to start. Don't use your age as an excuse. I have a cousin who learned Igbo in her mid-30s and is now damn near fully fluent. So she was one of the people that inspired me. I hope to do an interview with her at one point for this channel. So yeah, man, one thing I will also say is we can't be such a problem-oriented society where all we do is sit around and talk about the problems and talk about our traumas and not actually do anything. Yes, the transatlantic slave trade happened, and the things that happened to our people happened. The question is, what are you going to do about it? I'm not one of the people who are just going to sit around and have endless conversations and just be mad and, just complain endlessly. My idea was to actually do something about it, and what else can we do but to learn our languages? It's never too late. If you can learn one language, you can learn another one. So the point that I created this channel for was to simplify the process for a lot of people. Hopefully this can be a journey that we go on together. And as I said before, I just want to inspire one person to go on a language learning journey for themselves. One other thing I want to talk about briefly is two forms of English that I feel like, due to white supremacy, have gotten bad reputations as forms of English that are a little bit less than. The first of those is Nigerian Pidgin, which, by the way, has a little bit of influence from Portuguese. I'll make another video going into the details of that later. But here in Nigeria, when I was a kid and going to school in Nigeria as a teenager, I never really cared to learn Portuguese, because looking back at it subliminally, I kind of associated it as like a less educated way of speaking. And even when we were in, our teachers told us in school, there was like one of the rules that we're not allowed to speak broken English. They told us to speak proper English. They actually told us to not even speak Igbo unless we were in Igbo class, because it was an international school, even though everyone there was Nigerian. It's another way of how, like I said, these people convinced us that our languages were less than. Nigerian Pidgin is its own form of English and should be honored and respected as such. Like I said, if you're here in Nigeria, if you can actually go up and speak Pidgin English to people, they will assume, with a Nigerian accent, they will assume that you are actually one of us. You go up there speaking with your American accent or your British accent, they assume you're Johnny Just Come. They'll start raising all the prices and they take you for a fool. So I think when people speak to me, now that I'm here in Nigeria, when people speak to me in broken English or Pidgin English, I can understand it for the most part. So it's like, I don't feel like it can be too hard to learn, but that's also something that I would like to learn. I'm not going to take any lessons in Pidgin English because I feel like this being on the streets would be my best teacher. But the second one I want to talk about is African American vernacular English. From our community, there's so many people who look down on it. You know, people who say we should speak proper English. At the end of the day, language is dynamic, and I believe all dialects of languages should be respected. AAVE, as I'll call it, is its own dialect of English. So it's like if you can already speak Ebonics, AAVE, you're already bilingual. So I mean, you're further along than you think already. Like, it's silly to me to try to judge someone's level of intelligence by the way that they're speaking. You don't know. They could, like, I've seen Harvard-educated lawyers who just decide to code switch because they're around their people. Like, not everyone feels like saying, "Hey, how are you, George? How's your day going?" and being all proper all the time. Sometimes I just want to code switch. So it's like, to sit here and try to judge your perception of someone's intelligence just by the way they speak makes no sense to me. From here, I'll be posting videos in Igbo, Spanish, and Portuguese, mainly private lessons with tutors, and other videos will cover a wide multitude of things. I'm not going to try to define or limit it. What I am sure of is that it'll be very entertaining, it'll be very valuable, and I hope it'll be very helpful to anyone who could be possibly inspired to learn languages. Like I said before, it's not too late. The only way to start speaking a language is to start speaking badly, and do not worry about what others have to say. Don't worry about looking silly, because I guarantee you most people who will point and laugh at you wouldn't have the courage to do it themselves. So, Indi Bai, Kaibido y Mataasa Su Igbo. Vamos comenzar. Appreciate you guys for checking out this video. If you liked it, hit that like button, subscribe, comment. Let's spread the movement. Let's get started. Peace.